Back Row Ministry of the World Permit, Mr. Markley coming back at you live and direct. So, World War III, as we said, has officially began a while ago. And we're beginning to see the plays being made by all the participants. So, for those that don't understand, when we talk about World War, how do these things begin? Well, they begin on paper. They begin with ideas. Those ideas grow into ideology, and those ideologies grow into positions and moves. And we begin this World War basically with tariff wars. So tariff wars started World War III, but it had already started with the Israeli situation with Iran. And you see Trump this week making his statements about Iran, bowing down to his handlers as usual. And you see more of the push to bow down to the handlers. I did a video on, can Israel trust MAGA? I do not think they can. Remember now, Trump wants to position himself in Gaza. He's making back deals with the Saudis. World War III also is about Zionism versus Islam. Now remember, in Islam, you got various sets. And usually the war in Islam is Shiite versus Sunni. So the Saudis are Sunnis and the Iranians are Shiites. So Saudis don't like Iranians. Don't get it twisted. Just because they're Muslims don't mean that they're bosom buddies. So you could see Saudi try to make its play to gain territory in Iran and places like that, which will make some of the communist Conrads run there. The Iranians are not communists, but definitely anybody who sides with the U.S. and Israel are enemies to some of these people. So you could see China and Russia go to the Iranian side, which could be the play, but we're still watching the game of Stratego being set. So what is America trying to do? Well, first, America is trying to convince Canada that they need to become a state. Now, how this is going to work with all the budget issues we have, I don't know. Remember with Canada, Trump made a reckless statement out of his mouth saying that Canada has nothing that we get from them. Yes, they do. So one thing you do know, Canada, a lot of our oil as it's processed into petroleum and the gasoline comes out of Canada. So why would he make such a reckless comment? Well, that brings us back to Elon Musk and the Tesla and the electric cars. So remember, by 2033, actually, and they pushed it to 2033, all petroleum vehicles are supposed to have been taken off the road. And this is still on the books. If you look at some articles, Trump is not really moving away from this, or the Republican Party. The government as a whole, let's stop playing the feather game. The government as a whole is not moving away from this. So we're going to see this push towards the electric car, meaning that at that point, Canada won't have anything really to offer us because, as I said, most of the refineries that we utilize, most of our gas we were getting from Canada. That's why, we got it at such good prices. But they want Canada to become a state. How this is going to work, I have no idea with all our budget issues. But that is the big push, that Canada needs to become a 51st, the 51st or 52nd state. The prophecy number. So if Canada becomes a state and Greenland, remember they got this big push for Greenland becoming a state, we're getting annexed. And when we talk about a country being annexed, what that means is this for a lot of people who don't know what it means for a country to be annexed. Append or add as an extra or subordinate part, especially to a document. A building joined or associated with the main building, in addition to a document, and annexed to a report. So it's an add-on. So how can we annex a whole country? In U.S. history, annex refers to the act of formally adding a territory or land to an existing country or state, often through conquest or acquisition, as seen with the annexation of Texas in 1845. So we didn't go to war to get Texas. We just added Texas. So if you acquire a country, how much in debt is the country? Basically, you're buying the country. You're gonna acquire its debt. So my question is, who does Greenland owe money to? Greenland is saying it's independent, but who does Greenland owe money to? Where America say, well, we could just annex it. So we go to annex of Greenland. How could this work? So the acquisition of Greenland would give the United States control of the island that it sees as crucial to its defense. So we can use it as a defense reason. But how? Why is so? Going back to the how, Greenland still owned by Denmark. So Denmark owns Greenland. A treaty of Kiel gave Denmark final control of Greenland in 1814, but Norway claimed the eastern section of the country. This claim was successfully disputed in 1933, and Denmark has had control of Greenland ever since. The country was granted home rule by Denmark in 1979. That's how America can get Greenland. Greenland is owned by the Danes. It's owned by Denmark. So Greenland has independence, but it's offered independence. So I own this house. I'm buying this house from the bank. The bank still owns the house, but they let me hold the title. I don't own the house. I'm buying the house. At any time, the bank can write something up where they can make an acquisition of my house. They can find the lawyers to kind of write it up. But I'm buying the house for ownership. So I took a loan from the bank. The loan still is in the name of the bank, meaning they have partial ownership of my home, and I'm buying the house so I can get the loan, so I can be the sole owner of this home, and then it becomes mine. That's not the deal with Greenland. Greenland is not the sole owner of their own country. Denmark conquered them a long time ago through war, and they own Greenland. And at any time, Denmark can decide to sell Greenland. They can sell Greenland. It will be acquired by the United States. Now, they could still own, have their government and do what they want to do. But at the end of the day, America would take ownership of Greenland. That's how this works. So a lot of people don't know the history of the world, what's actually going on in the world. They hear somebody say something and then they say the person is crazy, but we don't read, we don't study, we don't do research. So you got to do research. Well, how can this work? How can a person just come and annex a country and say they can just take it over? Well, they just buy the ownership from the true owners, which is Denmark. That's how they can step in and take over Greenland. So World War is a structure. It's a structure for a reason because everybody is trying to get territory. It's like playing a game of Stratego. So if the U.S. gets Canada, they got the Canadian territory. They'll have the Greenland territory. And that'll kind of put Russia in the pickle because if Russia has to come across the water, now they don't. They can just shoot a nuke and that'll be it. But if they have to come, let's say Russia pushes, they won't try to push into Europe, but they might have the potential. But you have all these countries kind of standing in the way of Russia so they could not get to America. There'd be too many countries on the Western Front. Okay, so you have all these countries, but they still got the Chinese, they still got some other things in play. But that's kind of how this would go. So, for all those that did not know, Greenland is still controlled by the Danes, and Denmark can decide to sell at any time. They can sell their share of Greenland. And for those that don't know, All right, we can look at Denmark on a map. Image of Denmark. And there's Denmark. So you see Denmark is right on the top of Germany. So this little ass country right here has ownership. And this is some of the Germans, the thing that the German tribe did, kind of kept ownership of the stuff close to Sweden. So we know they got money, but the Danes still control Greenland. This little ass country controls Greenland. So they can sell Greenland at any time. So Greenland right now is just talking reckless. They talking reckless. They really don't have the funding to sustain themselves, and they could be annexed at any time. So it's going to take place, but you need money, and that takes us back to the other part of the World War, which is the Tariff War, and we see the actual beginning of World War, Tariff War. Tariff War is the big part of World War, where you go back and forth about trade. Trade is the lifeblood of civilization. So you see these countries going back and forth about trade. Who's going to trade what? Who's going to pay for what? Why am I paying for this and you haven't paid me for this? And like I said, with tariff, it's like a dope boy selling on your block. You got to tax him. No dope boy wants to be taxed over 10%. So he'll try to Jew you down. You'll say 20 to get to this 10. You're still trying to get to this 10% or 15%. Some bullies will charge you 25. But, that's the back and forth with the tariff war. And that's you seeing us deep into World War III at that, because now all countries are mixed in tariff wars, going back and forth, and it'll spread. Now, China's not getting picked on, although Trump talked tough about China. He's not going to pick on China. He's just, selling wolf tickets. He's not man enough to go over there and check them. Now, at some point, he is going to have to say, okay, what's the tariff going to look like on China? China really don't give a fuck. They're doing business in Africa, so they can care less. They're working with African countries now, so they'll pay whatever tariff Trump throws at them, so they're not worried about that. We need them more than they need us, basically. We got that game that hasn't changed. But that's kind of some of the strategy. Russia trying to keep their same strategy, keep their allies in check. They can move into Ukraine. They can move into Poland if they want to, but they know they won't risk that. Poland is building up their army. So the Western front is strong over there. So they know they're not going to try to push too deep that way. But this is World War III. At any time, anybody could decide to shoot a nuke and blow something up. So you'll annex Greenland, and Greenland gets nuked. You hit a territory that belongs to the United States. Hey, that makes the war now physical aggression now is a part of the war. So those are the moving parts of the World War. Greenland will probably get annexed. It's going to be some deal between Canada and the U.S. Something's going to happen with Canada. Not sure what it is, where Canada is going to have to fold. And I think around the time of this electric car, when that gets pushed, that's going to hurt Canada. Because like I said, most of the petroleum comes from Canada. But what if you ain't got no need for the petroleum? That's the only problem. So Canada has always been a place with a lot of resources. But what if they really don't have anything to sell to the U.S.? Will they have to get in bed with the U.S. and form some form of bond where we get a new structure to the continent, where I don't think Canada is going to give up their form of government, but what becomes new, because that'll just be a strain on the budget in my opinion. I think it'll be too much on our budget, so they're gonna make some form of deal with Canada. It's coming. So we're in the middle of World War. Everybody's trying to position themselves. You see Russia, China doing a lot in the African countries to get the African countries on board with them, meaning that Asia, the Asian African connection, will be strong in a world war. The African countries are going to side with the Chinese. I mean, they're doing business with them. They're not going to side with anybody but the Chinese countries. So just remember that, because this is who they're doing business with. So, just things to think about, as we move through this world war, as everybody pretty much tries to position themselves. Yes, but at the end of the day, that's how America can get Greenland. Greenland is not safe. At any time, Denmark can say, well, we sell the rights of Greenland to the United States and we acquire Greenland. They still can govern themselves, but they will be acquired by the United States. Mr. Mahdi, Back Row Ministry, peace.